Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Natsuko and I'm a fashion designer based in Melbourne, and in this video I wanted to share a little insight about the fashion industry and why they are overproducing. And I think there are many different things that contribute to this huge problem that we have, and I'll be sharing some of the things with you today, but ultimately these are the reasons why I decided to pursue a pre-ordering system for my brand Kodama Apparel. So recently I started to think, well, even though I'm making eco-friendly clothing like 100% organic cotton t-shirts or hemp and organic cotton blend kimono style jacket, it's great, but it's not exactly eco-friendly if I have all these stock sitting in the storage unsold doing nothing. And excess inventory is a huge problem we have in fashion industry today. And so I started to think, is there something that I can do differently? How can I create clothes more sustainably? And why is fashion overproducing in the first place? So here are some of the reasons why. So in clothing production, we have this thing called MOQ, or minimum order quantity, and it's a regular term thrown around in the conversation. And manufacturers in local areas, in Melbourne in my case, they have around 50 to 100 units per style per color, and that's pretty good. But making it locally, it will cost a lot more because obviously we have a higher cost in labor. The materials will cost more as well depending on where you source it from. So compared to that, with overseas suppliers, often, well, it depends on the country as well, they will tend to have lower prices, but they will have higher MOQs. So minimums can be challenging for some independent designers like me, or anyone who's maybe just starting out, but that's not really an issue for big fast fashion companies. They have an operation of mass scale production of thousands to hundred thousands of units per style, and that's a lot of clothes. You know, just imagine if you're making a whole entire collection at that scale, that's huge. By placing huge order quantities, these companies will have more negotiation power with the suppliers. And a lot of the times these companies, like I'm talking like huge companies without throwing names, but they often have lower margin, so they make profit through volume. And ultimately, that's how clothes are sold at such a cheap price. And sometimes when I go out and see t-shirts that's like as cheap as getting a coffee, like, it's really hard for me to understand sometimes, but that's how they get it so cheap, and that's how they make money. On a side note, with luxury brands, they wouldn't be producing in such a high volume like fast fashion companies, but instead they will have much smaller order quantity but a higher margin. So for example, if you're buying a haute couture dress from an Italian fashion house where there's team of ladies literally hand sewing the dress, that's gonna cost more, so they make profit through adding a high margin on their price. But anyway, going back to the whole mass scale production side of things, it seems all great from a business standpoint, but over the years this has caused a lot of problems. So typical clothing production evolves from design, production, and the sale of the product. Companies will forecast their sales and calculate their stock quantity they order. But in this forecast, it's never accurate because, I mean, no one will ever know how many they're exactly going to sell. But in saying that, that's not exactly the reason why fashion is overproducing. For a lot of these big companies, you can imagine they'll have hundreds of stores across the nation. They have to factor in all these stores and make sure they're filled up with stock, and they don't want to underproduce and miss out on sales either. So it's logistically easier for them to overproduce and deal with the excess later. Also, a few years back with luxury companies, they have been scrutinized over the media for destroying millions of worth of cosmetics and clothing. And unfortunately, that's a very common thing that happens in the industry, and excess inventory is just a common term to have in fashion as well. And all these stock that sits in the warehouse unsold will, or sometimes we call it dead stock, will ultimately end up in the landfill or get sent to a different facility to be destroyed. And it's just such a wasteful thing to do, because imagine all the labor, everyone who worked on these garments, and the resources like the water and everything that costs to actually produce the materials, the energy like electricity and materials that took to make these clothes are just simply destroyed because they made too many. So another reason could be the poor quality of the clothing, because a lot of the times in fast fashion brands where they are pumping out new styles every month or sometimes every week, and for them to sell clothes at such a competitive price has encouraged people to buy more clothes on a regular basis. And I'm not trying to say buying clothes is bad, but when you look at these clothes that were made so cheaply, a lot of them are not exactly made to last forever. And yeah, of course, like, you can look after it and repair and maintain where necessary, and I'm sure that will help to prolong the life of the garment, but I'm not sure for how long. And I came across an article from The Guardian a while ago, and on average, Australians are buying almost 15 kilograms of clothes, and 10 goes into the landfill each year. That's like huge. And I think the part of the reason why to that is the poor quality in the clothes. And it's so cheap to buy new clothes, so then, I could only imagine that a lot of people will be like, well, why should I, pay to get it fixed when I can spend the same amount of money to get new clothes? So the price, and I'm sure the marketing side of things, internet, social media, these things just have exploded over the years, and we have more access to information, and every time we open up our laptops or phones, like, there is never a moment we don't see ads from some brands pushing you to buy something from them. And so our feeds are flooded with beautiful ads from this fashion brand, that how amazing your life can be when you wear their new item. So I think there's a psychological part of things that contribute to this whole issue around the overproduction. Yeah, I think the mentality of shoppers have changed so much compared to what it used to be maybe 30 years ago, because clothes used to be handed down through the family, they were repaired, it was something that people used to keep for decades, but obviously that's not how we consume clothing anymore. So fashion giants are overproducing so they don't run out of stocks early and miss out on sales. And so creating more clothes basically creates more waste, and excess inventory, or we call it dead stock, ends up in the landfill or destroyed. And also that consumers' mentality has changed so much over the years through social media, internet, and marketing. And I think these are some of the main reasons why fashion industry is overproducing in the first place. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to give the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.